with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Headmaster's Homeroom. I am Lady Hamilton, and boy, do we have a show tonight. I am so excited. So welcome all. I've already been saying hello to you in the chats. And I am just so excited that you guys are here to join me tonight. So a few things that we're going to talk about. We're going to get our first sponsor out of the way here in just a minute. But I wanted to let you know that the wonderful Gregg Phillips is the interview that we have tonight. And I am so honored. But I'll tell you, this man is so busy. He is flying all over the world. I mean, he just got back from Nicaragua. Now he's in California. And the fact that he gave me over an hour of his time is unbelievable, everyone. So this interview I have, I got to meet him yesterday and I got to interview him. And it is him telling his story. You guys are going to love this, but it is pre-taped, so I get to be in the chats with you guys. But I wanted to share. So if you have any questions that you have for him, because I know that some of you do, let me just share my screen here with you. If you go down to, let's see, the permanent chats, let me add this here so everyone can see what I'm talking about. Give me 1 second. This is our Rumble that we're on right now. And you can see where I've said, please add any questions. So this is what I call permanent chats. If you guys put your questions there, I promise that I will email him. And when he gets back to me, I will answer your questions with what he says in those same areas for you. Okay. And I will do the best I can to make sure that we get anything you have for him answered and so he is just one of the most amazing men I've ever met in my life. So I'm very, very excited to share this interview. Again, this is an hour long and they spent time afterwards talking to me. And I am just so grateful and excited to share this beautiful interview and this wonderful patriot with you. So again, welcome everybody. But this would not be able to happen, of course, without beautiful sponsors. And on Sundays, on my show on Sundays, which airs at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I love to do different things with my garden and show you stuff. It's kind of how I started out. Is I really felt that I wanted to show everybody different things, like how to write a business plan or how to start a garden, or all these kind of things. So last week we were able to show you how to store things from your garden, and I'm very excited about those kind of things. But one of our sponsors I literally cook with. And if you guys don't know my love, Nurse Patrick will be here Sunday. So if you don't know my love for honey, I love our sponsor. I mean, I use this, I cook with this. You see it on Sundays. It is some of the most best honey I've ever had around the world. My favorite, I should say I have a favorite I do. And I'm so surprised because it's the turmeric one. But turmeric's so good for our body as well as the honey. Nurse Patrick always says honey is like God's wonderful medicine for us. But the turmeric really helps also with inflammation. And I'm so surprised how well they blend together. So I'll be cooking with it this Sunday. I'm thinking probably doing Greek salads. So make sure that you guys are watching. And again, I would not be here without one of our sponsors as well. So if you guys want to get 22% off of some of the greatest honey in the world, please check out Be Nourished. And here they are.
Honey. It's one of the greatest gifts to man. With millions of wildflowers in every bottle, the nourishing power of honey is still yet to be fully discovered. Be Nourished Healing Products combines healing ingredients from around the planet to the purest honey from the island of Maui to bring magic to your taste buds. The best honey from the most beautiful place to nourish your body, mind, and soul. From our hearts to yours. Be nourished.
And welcome back. Oh, I do love this product, and they have so many wonderful ones. I have 3 of them, and I always like to highlight one per week. The turmeric one is just happened to be my favorite. And again, I was so surprised at the taste. I thought it was going to be overpowering, and it's wonderful. So that helps us out. Another thing that helps us out, everyone, is if you hit those likes. That really gets us out more, and follow or share, but especially the likes and the following, because I want to continue sharing my guests with as many people as I can. And it's been such a privilege. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I've had so many wonderful guests from around the nation, that have been on here, from artists to people that are running for office, or people that are starting things in their communities. And that's how I got my show started. I run a nationwide online school, everyone, a private school. And usually I'm the guest, and I'm so grateful to Liberty Arise, because one of my things is when we're on the news, we hear them to say, stand up, do something, or you feel like you're alone, and you never seem to hear any good news. And you definitely don't hear about a lot of people, what they're doing in their communities. And I was like, we need a lot more good news. And he's like, you want a show to do that? So huge shout outs to my producer. Scott has been an amazing help in my life to bring you guys these wonderful guests. And I always joke, because you can buy him a coffee. There's that link, buy me a coffee /Scott Adams. So for price of a coffee, guys, go buy my producer a coffee if you can. But I'm going to say a huge shout out to my producer. Thank you so much for giving me this platform now twice a week, where I can either bring you a beautiful guest from our nation, or I can get to cook and talk to you about wonderful things like gardens, cooking, health things. We've done business plans, just really fun stuff. We even did a dating night, my husband and I. But my husband is Nurse Patrick, that's what he goes by. And he always comes every once in a while, usually once a month. And he does this little thing like, what did the doctor mean for you? I mean by that. So if you guys have any questions for a nurse, make sure you come Sunday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? Same link here on Liberty Arise. We'll be doing some different things. And canning will be the following Sunday. Since we taught you how to freeze them and things like that and store them, we're going to be talking about canning here in 2 weeks as well. So I'm super excited about that. But all right, without enough being said about that, I'm hoping you guys enjoy this. I'm going to load this up right now. Again, one of my things that I really don't necessarily like out there, and I've been on the news. Boy, it's funny because I was with you, a lot of the littermates today, as we saw a great episode with Carrie Lake, and it kind of reminded me of when I was a chef for the longest time. That's what I did for almost 25 years. And I would be on the news with people like Carrie Lake. I used to live in Arizona, and it was just amazing to be able to know her from then. I'm not any close friends, but I would be on the news several times. But she has no control of that. But the news, you're on there, and you might have 8 minutes, and the people cut you off. And it seems like, why'd you even invite the guest if you're just going to cut them off and only give them a few minutes? So another huge shout out to my producer, because I'm able to go here for an hour or two. And one of the things I love to do is I love the guests to tell their story. That's why I invite you on. I only have a few questions for this man. I was able to ask him a few, and he just went on with his beautiful story, things he's working on, things that he just currently did with minimal amounts of questions. And I am just amazed. Not only is he a warrior of God, he is truly a patriot hero. So without further ado, everyone, it's an absolute pleasure to give you this interview with the ultimate Gregg Phillips. Voila. Well, welcome, Mr. Phillips. Thank you so much for joining me at Headmaster's Homeroom. You know that I'm Lady Hamilton, and I so appreciate your time. We know so much about you from True to the Vote. And I also am going to introduce people to Open Ink, which is something I've been learning a little bit about. But you have, a beautiful history, a past, and I don't know that a lot of people even know what led up to this movement. Yeah, I know that you've worked in human resources and things like that, and you have a family and stuff like that. But all of a sudden, as most of my guests have been ignited by God in 2020 to stand up and do something. You sure have. And boy, have you made the scene. And unfortunately, you've had to kind of pay for that. But kind of what led up to this? I know this is not your normal life.
Yeah, it all started about 40 some odd years ago in Alabama. My dad was in the service, and while I spent many of my growing up years in the South and in Alabama, it wasn't completely that. And so, in 1982, I was in college, just working my way through college, and got a had an opportunity to get involved in a gubernatorial campaign in Alabama. It wasn't, any big effort, or I wasn't like, a campaign manager or anything. But I got involved because they needed somebody to do some research on the opponent. And so I got involved in that, and absolutely just fell in love with the whole idea. Now, this was back in the day, before the internet and before, cell phones and that kind of thing. And I found myself in courthouses all over Alabama, and in the basement of newspapers, looking at microfiche and doing all those kinds of things, and absolutely just fell in love with the whole idea and the whole thing. And it was super fun. A couple of years later, I got out of school, moved to California, went to work. For a few years out in California, but just absolutely was desperate to get back to the South, first of all, but also get back into this business. So I came back. I got into the bond trading business, and was involved in that for a few years, and had super fun. It was great. Made a ton of money. They changed the rules somewhere around 1986, and it made it much harder to make money in that securities and bond trading business. But I had already started what in essence was the first of my companies in the political circles. Ended up doing quite a number of races. Had an opportunity to go overseas once or twice back then, and really just spent a lot of time kind of honing my skills in the research space, and honing my skills in political circles, and getting to know people, and ended up working for a governor in Mississippi, Governor Kirk Fordyce, who's the first Republican governor since Reconstruction in Mississippi, and helped with his campaign, and ended up going to work for him. And I was still pretty much a kid by then. I was 29 or 30 or something, and went to work for him, running the Department of Human Services in Mississippi, the largest department in the state at the time. And well, I knew a lot about politics, and I knew a lot about how to talk about things like welfare and Medicaid, those kinds of things. I really didn't know much about it, but he tapped me to do it, and went in with kind of a little bit of a law and order kind of an approach. We focused a lot on quality control, program integrity, and fraud control, and those kinds of things. Heavily involved in a project called LEAP, Learn, Earn, and Prosper. The person who had the job before me started it, but I got involved in it, and really started to learn about distance learning. I mean, this was back in a day when you couldn't just do it over the internet, right? You had to go buy satellite time, transponder time to upload, and we were broadcasting every single day from the University of Mississippi, teaching people how to read. And Mississippi at the time had the highest rate of illiteracy in the nation, and man, it just lit me on fire. So I learned how to do distance learning. I learned how different people learn differently, whether they be kids or adults, and it was just a whole new world for me. So by the time I left that job, by now I had a few decent skills, and knew a few folks, and ended up working for Deloitte Consulting for a while in their global outsourcing group, and really just began to sort of expand my knowledge and capabilities. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Goodness gracious, excuse
Bless
me.
you. Allergies.
Yeah, it really is. And so that really led me. Then I ended up working a few years later with involved in the Health and Human Services Commission, a big reorg they were doing. We had 65,000 people and I think a $70 or $80 billion budget. It was one of the largest state-based departments in all of America, and it was just a wild experience. We were consolidating, downsizing. I think we dropped 23,000 people or something like that from our employment roles while I was there in Texas in a little over 18 months. Um, and got out, left that, got into the tech business, building on some of the things I had learned. Whether it was at Deloitte or back at DHS in Mississippi about distance learning, and really began to start to build some companies, and a company in particular. We still run that company today. We do a bunch of different stuff. We're still heavy in the fraud control business, quality control business, but in the healthcare space, we've got a couple other technology-based businesses that we own and run. And I've had a blessed career. I've had some amazing people, governors and all sorts of people that I've worked with. I've done political work around the world. I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of races, both in and out of the United States. I've been involved in disaster relief programs around the world, and it feels a little eclectic as I talk about it, but there are ties to all the different pieces and parts that go with it all. And I've just been blessed. But I've been in the election integrity business in one way or another as a broad project really since 82. In 1982 and 1984 in Alabama, there's a place called Bullitt County, Alabama, which is just outside of Montgomery, Alabama. And they had 147% of their voting age population both registered to vote and voting. I met a guy and worked with him for a number of years. He ended up being Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, a guy named Perry Hooper. He ran for Chief Justice in 1994 in Alabama, went to bed thinking that he had won by 15,000 votes, woke up behind by a couple hundred, and spent the next 11 months fighting for his seat as the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. He had some great lawyers and some great people, and he ultimately secured that seat, and I think was probably the best Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. But the lessons from that really kind of shaped the next 20 years in the way I looked at elections and the way I looked at how elections are stolen. And in this case, they absolutely tried to steal it from him. The Clinton Justice Department tried to steal it. The Alabama Trial Lawyers Association tried to steal it. And Judge Hooper believed that the rule of law matters, and it's the only thing that matters. And he made that stick, and he stuck with it for an 11-month battle that took it from the Alabama courts to the federal courts to a district court, and ultimately to our Court of Appeals, and ultimately to the United States Supreme Court. All of that really shaped kind of me and who I was. About 2009, Catherine, my partner, got into the election integrity business and is now, I think, widely considered, if not a leader, certainly, or not the leader, maybe a leader in that space. And so we met a few years later in 2013 and have been working together pretty much ever since. We have a number of projects we run together. We own the technology company together. We work on a lot of things. At one point, I was on her board on True the Vote, ended up leaving the board, and kind of reigniting some of the technology stuff that we were working on. But as most people saw in the movie, we still work really closely with Catherine and her team, and it's sort of like my guys and me run the technology, and they run the hard part, the election integrity part. And it's just been a really important match for me. She's my hero, my best friend, and we amount of time working together and really trying to fight for free and fair elections. I admire her in ways that it's be really hard for me to explain. I mean, I sit there and watch, she gets sued or we get sued every time we turn around. I think we have 6 or 7 lawsuits going on right now. We're going to trial on 2 of them here in a couple months, and it's just what our life is. We spend a couple $100,000 a month on legal fees, and it's our life. But I love it. I love what we do, and I love the people. I love this country, and if it's the last thing I do, we'll if we have to, we'll die fighting for this thing.
Absolutely. I mean, there's something that I did read when I was kind of researching your bios, and you talked about, and I can't remember the 3 states, but you had moved, but yet you were registered to vote in 3 different states, and probably could have voted in all 3 states. And when I read that, I was like, I've had something very similar to me. When I was at Columbia University, I registered, there as well, although I lived in North Carolina and we traveled back and forth, but yet I came from Arizona. So when it came time to vote, they wanted me to vote in Arizona, North Carolina, and New York. And I probably could have, but that just goes to
Yep.
show the same thing that you had said in a quote, like, how is our voting system have any integrity if we have nothing to verify who we are and we can vote in multiple states in the same
Right.
election?
It's a
And
shame.
right, but I saw
I'll
that
give you a great
firsthand.
example of how. Yeah, I can give you a great example of how messed up this really was. That article, I never even went back to them and told them they were wrong. I think it was an AP article. But yes, I was registered to vote at one point in Georgia. They had already taken me off the rolls, but when she went and looked because she was unable to verify my identity, she thought that another Gregg Phillips, who spells his name just like me and lived in Cobb County, was actually me. The guy was a good bit younger than me. But when she published that, she never even bothered asking whether or not that was me or not, which really is the other big problem, right? The voter rolls are dirty. They're not clean. And we spend almost no time trying to clean them. The federal law compels it, and a lot of state laws compel it. But these secretaries of state and these local election officials just don't get the voter rolls clean. But think about that. I mean, so she was trying to write an article making a point. Well, you're registered in 3 states. Well, first of all, that's not true because you didn't do your work, and I wasn't one of them. But in the place where it was true in the 2 states, isn't that the problem, right?
Right.
That you can move and still be able to vote in the place that you were before. Well,
Exactly.
what are we even doing? This isn't that hard, guys. We in
Right.
our healthcare business, we have the first thing we do is verify identity, residency, and citizenship about every single patient that comes through our system. That's our healthcare business, and we do it in real time. If
Right.
we can do it in real time, and we're just a little old company, trying to help people, stay healthy.
Right.
But if we can do it in that way, why can't they do it in the voter rolls? Why can't they? It's not that hard. You have states that haven't cleaned them in years.
Right. And there should be some kind of system that when you move and re-register in a new state, it's like a driver's license. It becomes null and void, and your new one and everything should shift, but it doesn't. And you're
Catherine
absolutely
and I,
right.
Catherine has been talking about this for years. She came up with this system, the American Voter ID system, that would allow people to do just that. The states still need to be able to run the elections, but if they're not enforcing the federal laws as opposed to cleaning these things up, maybe they need a little bit of help figuring out whether Greg moved from Georgia to Texas or Texas to Florida or wherever. And if they can't do it, then somebody's got to be able to do it. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it, but verifying identity residency is the most important thing you can possibly do. And if you can't do that right out of the gate, then how are you going to know that I'm casting that ballot? And it's
Right.
not somebody doing it on my behalf or that stole my ballot, or that the old ballot went to my house in Georgia, somebody got it and went and cast it in my name or changed the address. They knew I had moved, so they changed the address to go to their address, and now they got my ballot and their ballot, and they're voting. And if you don't think those things don't happen,
They do.
you're sadly mistaken.
Right. And I can witness that because it happened to me. I mean, I got 3 things like, hey, it's voting time. So I could vote in Arizona or North Carolina or New York. And I was like, this is crazy. I
It really
technically
is.
lived in North Carolina. That's where I'm going to go vote. But then, like you said, who's to stop somebody from voting for you? And then now you've committed something illegal, that could, turn around and bite you in the butt, and you didn't even know it even happened, but
All
it's
those things
very
are
much
exactly right.
a real thing.
It's
And
really it's really frightening. And we last in 2020 in Georgia, in the runoff in Georgia, the runoffs in Georgia in late 2020, early 2021, where there were two Senate races that had to be decided, that ultimately decided the fate of the United States Senate. Um, we ran a simple query against the National Change of Address Register. We look at other things, and I think it took us a day or two to make the queries, and we did it. We found 364,000 voters not registered, or excuse me, not eligible to vote. And it wasn't anything crazy. We didn't look at dead people. We didn't look at anything that sets off the left. We only looked at people that had moved. So if they moved, we looked at it. Do they still live in the county? Yes. Okay, they're good to go. Do they live out of the county or out of the state? No, they're not. They're not eligible to vote in that county. We we followed the Georgia law, which allows Georgia citizens to challenge other citizens that for some reason, if they think they're not eligible. Within 2 days, we were sued. 2 days. This was on December 15th. On December 17th, we were sued by Stacey Abrams and Mark Elias. That case is going to federal court in Georgia in 2 months.
wow.
And the idea that we were simply trying to help clean the voter rolls, and that the citizens who participated in this were just trying to help clean the voter rolls because the Secretary of State hadn't done it. He says he tried to do it, but they sued him and blah, 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 and so he couldn't do it. Well, 11% of Americans move every year. 3% of Americans die every year. If you don't clean the voter rolls in 2 years, you could potentially have a quarter of your voter rolls where the people, just aren't either alive or don't live there anymore. And if you do that at scale and across the entirety of an election cycle, it could be a real problem. It is a real problem. Imagine that, 364,000 voters not eligible to vote. Well, here's the rest of that story. A couple of months after that, even after the lawsuit, we went back and looked to see how many of those people voted. How many voted in the general election, meaning in November the 3rd, and how many voted in the runoff election on November the 4th, on January the 4th. So numbers are rough, but 67,000 of those people voted in the general. They were not eligible to vote in Georgia, and 67,000 of them voted. How could that be? How could it be? And then in the runoff, which was even a tighter race, I think 47,000 of them voted in the runoff.
Wow.
If they don't clean these voter rolls, and if we as citizens don't figure out a way to get these voter rolls clean, we are doomed to live, under the rule of tyranny.
Right.
And it's crazy. It's insane. Just clean the rolls. If you don't live there, you don't get to vote there. Period. That's the way the game works. You get to vote where you live. We're not trying to say you can't vote. We're just trying to say you can't vote here.
Right. Or in 3 places. Or right. I totally agree with you. I mean, and with all the administration and people that work there, you're just like, you seriously can't devote any time to doing this. And then when you have volunteers, you're gonna hurt and penalize them for wanting to help. But it just blows my mind because as we change like I said, our IDs, you would think that they would be able to nullify where you were before, but that's not happening. It'd be
No, it's
interesting to
really not in
see
it.
how many people on that list when they moved, did they vote in their other state as well?
Well, we're working on that.
Are
In
you?
fact, I'm out in California right now. We just did a software deal with a company that has a piece of software. They don't use it for politics or elections at all, but we bought an exclusive license for a piece of software. Super expensive, but a little breathtaking actually. But we are building a method for for people and systems to be able to manage and monitor this stuff in not just real time, but very effectively, using the capabilities of technology that didn't exist, even a few years ago. So we're excited about it. We're looking forward to it. I'm going back. I've been in meetings for 2 days out here. I've got another day and a half worth of meetings, and really looking forward to what we're able to come up with. But it's an exciting time. I mean, there's never, tell my now adult children, that there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur in the United States of America. I mean, the technology is amazing. The capabilities for really scaling our with that technology are so significant, and it's just an amazing opportunity for young people to grow their businesses and build products that matter, that bring value to the world and to the marketplace. And I'm excited to even be an old guy part of it. I can't imagine, if I was 25 years old right now, there's no telling more energy. Yeah, there's no telling what I'd be able to accomplish. But yeah, it's just such a great time, and we're bringing to bear a bunch of new things and a bunch of new tech. And we run a data center right now that has more technology capabilities than I had when I was running the entire Department of Human Services in 1992 or 3 in Mississippi. And so, I think back to, I tell my boys all the time, I didn't even have email when I was running that department. It was the largest department in the state of Mississippi. I didn't have email. I think I may have had a cell phone by then. I know for sure I had a pager. Do you remember the SkyTel pagers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
SkyTel was based right there in Jackson. So we all had SkyTel pagers, and you could send a text on a pager, right? But it's very clunky, right? You'd have to punch,
very simple.
You'd have to punch. Yeah, it's very, very rudimentary, very
the days
simple.
Before LOL, people.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But those were fun days for sure. And I've had a great life and great opportunities and met a lot of amazing people, and it's just, it's a fun time to be around, a fun time to be alive. Stressful with all the the folks that are in charge these days, but that's what we're here for. I tell people here lately, and make a speech about this, that it is the plight of a patriot in a representative republic that they be forever vigilant in elections. Elections are the battles, right? Every 4 years or every 2 years, we go to battle. The war is for the republic, but the elections are the battles. And if you lose too many of the battles, you're going to lose the war. But this has been, they've been stealing elections in the United States since the year 1800. They tried to steal it from Thomas Jefferson. A few years later, they stole it from Andrew Jackson in 1824. He got so mad and figured it all out how to cheat that he was able to come back and cheat them by 1828. If you look into kind of Tammany Hall, and there's actually some famous art about this. For a while in the late 1800s, they'd get people drunk and take them to the polls and get them to vote for their guy. And you think about all these kind of things. We like to think, oh, this started in 2020 or this started in 2016. No. For me, it started in 1982. But for the United States of America, for this great republic, it started, almost from the beginning. And it will continue. It will continue to evolve and devolve. But it's certainly true that it is the plight of the patriot to be forever vigilant.
That's right.
And we must be, and we have to remain that way. And an election, but if too many of them fall, then we lose the war. We lose the war for the republic.
Absolutely. Even my youth, a few years back when we were doing U.S. history together, they were finding it in governor's races and stuff, and like you said, back in the 1800s, and they were floored that this was going on way back then. And I was like, absolutely, if you can find a way to do it. And whether it was cheating with voter rolls or bribery or whatever. I mean, we watched the movie Lincoln, and just even to get the emancipation of the slavery, it's just they even showed it in
Right.
that movie with the money and the what am I going to get for this, and the bribery and the so forth to just vote. You're like, right, this has been going on for a very
There,
long time.
there's a famous quote in 1841, and I'm sorry I don't remember the document that it was in. It's fairly easily found on the internet these days. But Lincoln was an organizer for the Whigs in Illinois back in, I'm pretty sure it was 1840, 1841. And he wrote a kind of an essay, if you will, short, but nevertheless an essay about how to get people registered to vote and how to be sure that the voter rolls remain clean and that kind of thing. And I'm gonna hack up his quote, but the beginning of the quote said, first make a perfect list of all the voters, meaning the voter rolls have to be clean and it has to be always clean. And so as you move into an election, that's the first thing you have to do, is to make that perfect list. And it's really, over the years I always think back to that like, this has been going on for 200 years, guys. Just stop arguing about it. Let's just figure out how to fix it. But not everybody wants it fixed.
Well, right, that's apparent, and it's amazing how it flips depending on, and we've heard this, depending on who wins, it flips, and they've called this out in 2016. They've probably called it out in 2008. I mean, it just seems like, it depends. It doesn't matter. Whatever side, the other side complains that, oh, no, you cheated. And, until
Exactly.
it gets cleaned up and it can be verified, that would be nice too, right? Then it's just going to stay forever a mess. And that's not how our forefathers wanted it at all. They wanted it to be very much of the people. Um, and, I'm grateful for that. I own it like it's my own great grandfather, but my husband, comes through the long line of Alexander Hamilton. And it's just people don't even realize. I mean, most of these people, these kids were very young, but had such a passion for freedom and the passion for our rights and to avoid this tyranny that they spent their lives dedicated to shaping this for us. And in a
and
matter
willing
of
to and
minutes,
willing to fight and die for it, right?
right?
I mean, we were talking about this the other day. Can you imagine back in those days, let's just say you're a delegate to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia and you're from Georgia.
Right.
Can you imagine that adventure?
Right.
Think about it. I mean, today, if you told me, well, I had to get in my car and drive from Atlanta to Pennsylvania, I'd be like, I don't think so. Maybe I'll think about it. If you told me I had to walk or ride a horse or get a horse and buggy, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing it.
I have a small experience with that. My parents set me on that when I was young, as a teen, to experience how that would be. And I was gone for a week. I did very well, but most of the people kind of know. But that was just a week walking over like a mountain and living like a pioneer per se. But
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were like 19. It would take months to get from one place to another.
Absolutely,
So very dedicated.
and all sorts of dangers, right? I mean, it wasn't
Hmm.
just like you can call get out your cell phone and call 911 if somebody's trying to get you. I
Right.
mean, there were all manner of things you had to think about, including food,
Hmm.
right along the way. And Catherine and I have both in the last few years done at separate times, but nevertheless, we've both accomplished it. Have gone over to Spain and walked the Camino de Santiago, and I can tell you that walking 500 miles um, is even in modern times is a challenge.
Yes.
It just is, right? I mean, no matter your age, really, and for these other folks that had to walk even further than that, I mean, it's a huge undertaking. But I'm not saying they all walk by any stretch, right? Obviously they didn't, but nevertheless, I mean, this is what this country was founded on, and now we'll send me my ballot in the mail, and I'm going to vote, and but I want to be able to put it in a Dropbox, or I want to be able to just put it back in the mail. I don't want to have to work at this because it doesn't really matter. I don't want to show my ID. I don't want to do anything. I just want to do. This we're just not that far along yet.
Right.
and folks willing to cheat the system. In some ways, it's
I lost your audio for a minute. Greg, can you hear me?
and I teach them,
There.
like homeschooling with just me. God bless those two kids for going through it all with me. But I made them, part of what I taught them, and they were young. I mean, let's see, she was probably only 4 or 5, so maybe kindergarten, and he was eight or so, and but I made them learn the things that they needed to learn. They needed to understand about how did people get to Philadelphia, and they needed to understand, what life was like back then, and how these people laid their lives on the line in some ways every day. And for those that signed that Declaration of Independence, they legitimately laid their life on the line just by signing their signature to one document. But I just, I fear that the kids just don't know that stuff these days. It's just,
Well,
it's
I'm
sad,
trying
it's
my best to
frightening.
change that, but they're not. And they
I know
alter
you are.
history,
I know you are.
and they
They do.
one of the things I really hate is how they even use my great grandfather, and they'll use him depending on how liberalized they want to make him, or he's a villain.
Yeah,
And you're like,
change history.
I'm like, have you read his journals? I had my students reading about the forefathers. They each got to draw one and then writing about them. And I mean, I like for Oliver Wilcock, one of our girls wrote a creative story about. I didn't know how much he was into love letters with his wife. Everything he did, every time he left, he'd write these huge long letters to her because he was going to be gone for months. And so it was just, but they didn't know, and they need to know what are our foundations, where do we come from, and what are our rights. I remember even teaching the kids that they didn't think that they had equal justice, and didn't understand why we were even celebrating Martin Luther King Jr., or civil rights or whatever you want to call it. They're like, but it's not fair. We don't have the same thing. We're treated differently. I said, no, you have the same laws. Why do you think these people were marching? Why do you think that they were trying to fight for this? Are you in a segregated school? And they're like, well, no. I go, that's exactly. Now, mentality is totally different than equal law, but they just don't know, and they
Absolutely.
take that out. So you don't know. And you
Look, I
really
lived in
do.
Montgomery, Alabama. I lived in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in first grade. By the time I got into junior high school, we lived down in Montgomery. But this was in so let's see, I was tracking my years, get old. So in 1966 in Tuscaloosa, I started school. By the time I got to junior high school, integration was, a thing. And growing up in Montgomery, Alabama during integration, I got a really unique perspective and unique view, I think, that, a lot of people, didn't have. And I think my generation there, we didn't really understand that a lot of the rest of the country was looking at us as though we were somehow bad, or that we were just kids, right? We weren't bad or good. We didn't know anything. We just went where we were told. And I think back to those days, and so many of those lessons are lost, right? I mean, I lived in Alabama, during these marches, right? And it was an extraordinary circumstance, and I'm a much better person for it. Um, and I often think, especially my high school years, it was a rough time, right? I mean, we got thrown onto sports teams, for example. With I went to a high school in Alabama that was half and half. It was 50-50, and man, and you go from just being like this normal guy to all of a sudden you're in the midst of the fuss and fight for everybody else, but we were just trying to win football games.
Right.
And so, and I've talked to some of my friends, black and white, since then, obviously, and we talk about that all the time. About we didn't even know.
No.
We didn't know that people were accusing us of things. Both sides. We were just kids trying to get by and trying to live. You know, I fear that so much of what we went through and how much the world has changed since then. When I worked in Mississippi, my director of program integrity, a guy named Robert Cook, African American guy. He's now, I think he runs a big department in the state of Mississippi. But he was a little bit younger than me, I think. Maybe not. Maybe he was older. I can't remember now. But Robert and I used to go around and make this talk, and the talk was about sort of our friendship and how we grew up. And he grew up as the son of sharecroppers, and I grew up as the son of the military officer. And but how remarkably similar the outcomes were in terms of how we approach life and how we approach the world. And again, this was in Mississippi in the early 90s. But in those intervening 30 years, goodness gracious, so much has changed in this country. And kind of watching it all, people sort of making up, well, in Montgomery, Alabama in 1970, it wasn't like that. Well, I was kind of there. It kind of was like that. So I don't know. It's just it's frustrating to sort of watch history be changed and lost. And it's one of the reasons we started Open Ink. If you go search on 1960s, 1970s Montgomery, Alabama, you're not going to find a lot of good things, right? You can find a lot of racial stuff and a lot of other things, but there were some great things happening there. Judge Hooper's story was a little bit later, but still a great story that people need to understand and know about. It's relevant today as it was then. But those kind of stories are lost to the world, right? Google's not going to put them in there. You can go look all you want at all the race problems in Montgomery those years, but you're not going to find much at all about all the good things that were going on and how just regular people learned to live with each other and go to school with each other, and that it was no big deal, right? Like I said, all we wanted to do was just win some football games. I didn't care whether my friend Bill Gary was black or white. It didn't matter to me. Kid could catch, and that's what I cared about. But anyway, I don't know.
It's so true, though.
I guess every generation thinks these things and talks about them, but we sort of lived it, right? I mean, we grew up and it was a different place in time. But on the other hand, it wasn't. But the world has changed so much, and I just wish people understood that we weren't, just because I grew up there then, I'm not a bad guy. I didn't mean I'm a racist. I mean, every time I could turn around, somebody, well, he grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, so he's a racist. What?
Right.
No, that's not the way the game works, guys.
No, it's not. I've been, and I've said this before, I've been around the world, and from Australia to Ethiopia, South Africa, Cuba. Cuba was an experience. I got to live there 3 months in a house with other people, and I highly recommend, if you want to see you want to be thankful for your freedom, go to Cuba for a little while, right? And not Havana, not the resorts. Go into the actual where the people are. It's a whole different world. But the same thing.
I went to Nicaragua last week.
I know.
Catherine and I had a great opportunity to do that, and I feel the same exact way. And I've had the same experience as you. I mean, I've been all over the place. I've been to, I've been everywhere. I've been to Africa. I've been to Southeast Asia. I've been all over the place. When I was a little guy, lived in the Philippines back in the 60s.
We're so similar.
And oh my gosh, absolutely right.
We all wake up and go to work or go to school.
I have two Filipinos.
Families.
That's exactly right. I have two Filipinos working for me now. My parents love those people. I love those people.
Right.
And I mean, we somehow, we're such elitists in some ways, right? I mean, we're, as Catherine says, we're all a lot more alike than we are different. We saw that again in Nicaragua. The light of Christ was all over that place. And anyone who says, well, it's a dictatorship or it's a this or it's a that, what are you even talking about? Have you ever been? Have you ever spent time with these people? I got to spend a few days of my life with 100,000 people in a muddy field in the rain in Masaya, Nicaragua. And I can tell you that those people are no different than us.
Right.
They're not one stick different than us. They cry like us. They love like us. They fight like us. They do all kinds of things like that. But they're no different. They're God's people, and they deserve, they deserve everything that we deserve. And it's just maddening that Americans have just seemingly gotten
So
away from
far
us.
away. Well, I honestly think that that's an agenda to keep us divided, keep us living in fear, keep us thinking that we're enemies when, if you just literally talk to your neighbor, get to know them, or your community, get involved, you're going to find out, just even with that, how similar you are. Even if you politically feel differently, you have so much more in common. We care about our kids. Well, I'm hoping most of us care about our kids. I've seen the fight against our youth. Man, is Satan showing up. But, most people that I meet care about our kids and care about our community. We all get up, like you said, go to work, you go to school, you go to church, you whatever. But, I've seen so much love from just getting to know my neighbors. And we don't maybe agree on everything, but we have a lot more in common. And the fact that we can communicate, that's what it's all about. But I think that they
My
keep us
gosh, that
completely
is so
divided.
true.
And
That is
it's an
so
absolute
true. I
shame.
just could not have said it better. That's perfect.
All right. And, you just have to, I just keep encouraging people, and I love it. One of the reasons I even have a show, I don't know if you know this, Greg, is because I was so tired of listening to all news, both sides, keeping everybody in fear. Stand up and do something, and then never sharing what people were doing, never letting people talk about what they're doing. And when I was a guest on Liberty Arises, is now who our platform is, he's like, would you like your own show where you could do that? I'm like, really? I mean, I got to go to CPAC. I've been to Turning Point events. I've been all over, Ohio, education conventions, just getting to know what people are doing in the community. So I can hopefully bring, even if it's just my little podcast, right? But hopefully bring the fact that you're not alone, everyone. Look at what they're doing here. Look what you could do here. Look what you could start here, and it's just, that's got to change, or they're going to continue to make the narrative stronger and stronger. So,
You're right on all counts, and I, I've said since we got back from Nicaragua that it was in some ways life changing. Nicaragua, it really is an impoverished place, even in Managua. But as you get further out into, we had the great fortune to go up into the mountains out in the rainforest and go to a community with a group of pastors, and they cooked for us and they prayed with us, and we just had the best time. And it was an amazing experience. And in some ways it was life changing. And I just wish that everyone could have that opportunity, even if it's just for a few days, 4 or 5 days. I mean, I'm going back, and then we're going back again in November. I'm going back
oh,
in September
wow.
and go back again in November. And I just wish that everyone I knew could have that opportunity, because I left there with a profound understanding of what you just described, that we truly are a lot more alike than we are different. And especially as it relates to God in our hearts and God in our lives, and God into the lives of 100,000 people standing out in a muddy field in the pouring rain with
That's
lightning and
beautiful.
everything else going on. And instead of, in America, if that happened and it started raining and you were in a muddy field, what would you do? You cut and run and go get
They
in your
would.
car, or go take a shower and drink a beer or whatever people do. But these people just moved in closer.
Mhm.
They just moved closer to the stage.
Isn't it
and
unbelievable?
and it was, oh my gosh, it was, I mean, the you, it was almost as though the blood of Christ was all over that field, and that those individuals in that field were all, and us, were all being touched by what was happening. And it was magical in some ways. Just God's presence was like, whoa. I
Right.
mean, you could feel it, and it was just amazing. I've been, since I've been back, I've been searching for more adjectives and more words to describe it.
And
Um,
there is
I
some.
don't have them other than to say it was life changing.
Right. And gratitude, massive gratitude for even
Oh
having that
goodness.
a beautiful experience. And I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. That's one of the things I love about you the most. And I love to share is your strength and faith is the most beautiful thing I've seen. I look forward to seeing that you put scriptures on truth, and you just have this essence, because your relationship with the Father is so beautiful. I try to do the same thing. I pray before my podcast. I have a Sunday show dedicated just to that kind of thing, and I just love to honor the Father, in all that I do. But it's just like when I went to Cuba, I had that same thing. Even living in under a dictatorship, the people were unbelievable, made minimal amounts of money, give me anything I wanted. I'm drinking coffee like we would do here, like a spoiled American. And it cost my poppy his entire month's salary just from my coffee addiction. And I had no idea until they took us to a grocery store. And I'm like, that's not rationed. I thought everything was rationed here. I was like, oh, and then they showed me their ration cards. I was like, oh, and you got to pay for all this other stuff. I was like, wow. So, I mean, my coffee addiction went right down.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But other than that, though, they would give me anything, and they'd have these beautiful things, and people would gather and they'd conjugate and they would celebrate just even the evening, or, the love for each other. And you're just like, wow, and to see them during a service and them getting closer with each other and so welcoming. And you're like, wow, I wish that it was here a lot more. I can remember younger it used to
I,
be, but it seems like that's not happening anymore. We need to bring that back.
indeed. I think one of the I think one of the things I'm most grateful for, after Mules and after the bit of the notoriety, is just meeting people like you, right? Is meeting. I mean, I've met so many people that kind of think like I do. I think because of my work and a little bit in the shadows and not really out there, that I didn't really realize just how profound, um, you know that God's the movement, let's say the movement toward God had become. I knew it, I knew it because I was around Catherine and my kids and everybody, but it's truly a movement. I've probably talked to more people this week, about my faith and my journey to the cross, than I probably did in the last, in from 2000 to 2010. um, and I've learned how to talk about it, and I've learned how to express my faith and my feelings for Christ, and but more so today than ever, I run into people like you, and I run into, just people that like I think I mentioned before the thing started. People will stop me in the airport, and what they stop me most about, other than potentially taking a picture, is to talk about
Yes.
faith and to talk about their journey. They talk about their experience. Just yesterday, I was stopped in an airport in California, and a lady came up to me and she started talking to me about the prayer crusade in Nicaragua. I'm like, how did you even know about this? She said, a friend told me. I said, so you're not on Truth Social or anything? And she said, no. I'm like, I, wow.
That
And
blows my
it's
mind
just
too.
yeah, it's just a reminder that, to me, to constantly, as often as I can, talk about it and share and
So
share.
important.
Most people think I'm kind of heartless and mean and that guy, but I'm really not. I mean,
I
my
have
my
not seen
heart
that
is,
side.
100% to Christ. It might be there.
It might be there.
So
Well,
it,
I guess
it
it
was there
depends
at
where
one
your
point in
eyes
my
are
life. How about
focused,
that?
right? My eyes tend
Yeah.
to, on any platform, because my love for our Savior and our Father, my eyes are always focused to scriptures and people of faith. And the common
Amen.
denominator between all my guests is, boy, the Father has been busy since 2020, lighting people up to start
Goodness.
things that they never thought they accomplished. I never thought in a million years I would start a school until 3 a.m. And he's always waking us up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. I get this nudge, find paper, pen. I'm like, what in the world? And I'm writing down that I'm going to start a school, that I need to prepare school. I'm like, what in
God
the,
bless you.
well, it's been a struggle, and that's a whole story in itself. The fight has been so real on every single platform, but I don't give up. because our youth, look at this. I mean, we see this in movies now, how the left is even screaming out. I headlined an international child trafficking human rights event that went on at Columbia University for a month in 2019. Four of my art pieces
Wow.
behind me headlined that. I was highlighted for it. And now they're coming out saying this is not real. I'm like, I
Wow.
don't even understand that, but my youth, the youth are my hill that I chose, because we can't all fight a million battles, but we can choose one and hone in on it. But we
So true.
all need to fight for our youth, because it's just so bad. And we're seeing this,
Amen.
if you teach them right, amen, if you teach them from the very young, we're just destroying them. And when in fact we should bring them together and realize that we're not different, everyone. We're not different, and this has been a definite fight. I agree with you. It's a good versus evil, and it's going to take a lot of us to bring that back. Bring
Well,
that
I
back.
hope that I can help you on some of your challenges, and look forward to it. And I can't thank you enough for sharing
Yes,
your
sir.
show with me, and I hope that we can continue to grow our relationship and start building this
Yeah. Thank
building
you.
a road together to
Thank
help
you.
these kids and to help make a better spot.
I'll actually take just a couple of minutes after we close of your time before you go, because I know you're busy, but I wanted to thank you because, like I said, it's just patriots and warriors for God that I just love to follow. And again, I mean, I do follow the True to Vote. I've been really looking into Open Ink, everyone, and I will be sharing that after this video so that you guys know where to see these amazing signing up and all this kind of stuff, and sharing those websites with you. But it's really your humbleness, your gratitude, and your faith that caught me. I was like, man, this guy is just a true warrior for God, and I am so grateful for that. It helps, and it just inspires me daily. Just so you know, and I appreciate
Well,
that.
everybody has their struggles, and everybody has their own journey to the cross, and and it took me a long, long time. I had a tragedy that happened to me when I was young, or to me. Listen, I had a tragedy that happened while I was young, that took me literally decades to get over, and I was rough around every edge because of it, and it took me forever. And one of the things I'm most grateful to Catherine about, and I witness about this all the time, is she this would have been about a year or so after we met, I think. I really can't remember, but we were having dinner in DC after a particularly raucous event that we had been at. And, everybody's mad at everybody and whatever, and and it happened to be the anniversary of that event that had happened. So I was a little quiet, a little pensive, and she just said, "What's wrong with you?" And I kind of explained the situation, and it was that conversation in the subsequent years that really, it wasn't that I wasn't believing. It's just that I hadn't given it all to God. I hadn't found that, I didn't realize that I had built these barriers between me and my relationship with God. And she helped me get past that, and I am now on a path that it's my own for sure. But I never would have been on it if it had been for us. People ask me all the time, well, how'd you guys get to be such good friends or work together, whatever? Well, part of it is that she was my guidepost on my path to the cross, um, and I'm I'll be forever grateful to her for that. But everybody needs somebody to help them with that, and that's what I pledged to her that I would try to be, is to try to guide more people that maybe have been in the same spot as me. Go to church your whole life, maybe not, but when you really believe and you really start to understand that, as in First John, it all began with the Word, and the Word
Right.
was God, and being able to articulate those kind of things now, and turn them into sort of a real life experience and help people, whether it's an old guy like me, another old guy like me, or whether it's young people. It's something that I love to do, and it's just part of my life now. And I'm learning every day how to do it, and how to get the words right, and how not to offend people. But I'm just me. I'm just real. I'm just a regular guy who happened to have a particular technology skill that became interesting to people. But in the end, I am just like everyone else, and my path to God is no different than anyone else's. But it has to be your own, and to you have to get on it.
That's right. I, for one, am so grateful that God has made you a steward over many things. And I am very grateful for all that you're doing, not only for our communities and our nation, but around the world. Because even those beautiful revivals, I mean, I just wish I could just go right there with you because I know how beautiful that is. And I'm a little jealous because I just know I just want to relish in that moment. I want to be in that moment. But I cannot thank you enough for all that you do. I mean, it's really
Thank you.
appreciated. And if people don't tell you enough, you are really appreciated. And we look at you as truly a warrior of God and a patriot hero. And I
Thank you.
appreciate it so much. Is there anything, I always ask this as the last thing, if you could inspire somebody to do something, what would you tell them to do?
Unequivocally embrace the word of God and pray. Prayer doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be anything memorized. I mean, God knows what your heart is. He just wants you to talk to him. And I think too many people are either embarrassed about it or whatever, or I don't know how, or I don't know what to say, or whatever. Just it doesn't matter. He just wants to talk to you. And I would just encourage people to study the word and to pray and do it every day, and it will change your life.
I agree. I agree. I am so appreciative of your time, and I look forward to collaborating with you more. And you can come back anytime you want. It has been a true honor and a pleasure. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Sorry about that, everyone. That is, I hope that you enjoyed that interview. I mean, I just like get all teary and everything whenever I have, special moments. And that was just so special to hear his love for God. And I have never in my life seen an interview with Gregg Phillips where you actually heard these kind of stories. I mean, you might get 8 minutes here and he's talking about voting, which he definitely did, right? But to hear these stories of his life and what he's going through and his experiences, I just am so thrilled. And he gave us over an hour of his time to just tell us his story. And what a beautiful story that is. And I've been in the chats in the background, with Ron and Jody. Thank you so much. Just writing about little things that just, wow, sharing different things about that. But I am so honored just to even have that much time. And then when we closed the interview, he spent time talking to me. And he is really a beautiful human being that just loves our nation, loves God, and loves to serve and meet people like me and you and so forth. He loves to hear from us. So if you're not on True Social following him, get on True Social. I see that he's very interactive on there as well too, and it's a really a joy to get to know him and now be able to communicate with him. And like I said, what can we do? We always think of these kind of things. What we can do, number one, right? Find your relationship with God. I really love that. It takes your own path. But, there's an episode, I don't know if anybody's seen The Chosen. I love that. But there was an episode when there was a demons that came back into the camp and recognized her, and it freaked her out, and she ran off and started drinking again instead of turning to Christ, and the disciples go and get her. And when she comes back and has to face Christ, he's like, I knew you'd sin again, but, that's not the point. He's like, Mary, God just wants your heart. The Father just wants your heart. He wants a relationship. And that just struck me so much because I'm always talking and the kids are like, who are you talking to? I'm like, God, as I walk around the day, just, like I normally would, with anybody else. But I love that. It is that simple, that prayer or speaking to our Creator, our Father, is really just that simple. He just wants to have a relationship with us, right? The Savior came down here for us so that we would know that, have that relationship. And I'm very, very thrilled. And I'd love to hear that from him as well, too. So I promise also that I would share his links. Now below, so in Rumble, in the permanent chats, like way down below, where you'll see I put hello and welcome. If you just kind of scroll down, I put 2 links that you can find what he's working on. And I'm going to share those right now here with you as well. So let me get those up so I can share them right here. Okay, so let me add that to our stream. Okay, this is Open Ink, and it's really that simple, everyone. Okay, it's open.ink. You can go up to About if you want to know more about it and learn about here this too. This is really amazing. They're trying to bring back history and preserve records and research archival writings. I just really love that. It's something he's working on dedicated time on, and it's absolutely amazing. So this is something that you guys can check out. Also, let me remove that one. If you don't know, him and Catherine are from True the Vote. So let's show you that one as well. I put that link also below, but let me share that with you so you can have that. Give me 1 second, everyone. Sorry. There we go. So this is True the Vote. And this website is literally truethevote.org. I've also put this one here too. My state, get involved. Right, here's some things that you could do, how to contact them about, want to know more about them, right? Because we've learned about our voter rolls. Oh my heavens. And if Catherine is working on something, I love that American ID thing. And hopefully, that is a way to do that, but we've got to do something because that did happen to me. Being in 3 different states. And, I don't know if it's because I had just moved from Arizona and bought the place in New York and then got the dorm in Columbia all within about a month or 2. But still, I mean, come on, when you get a different driver's license, in fact, when you go get your driver's license, they always ask, do you want to register to vote? So I don't understand how that system just cannot work. But it seems like it just doesn't. And it was really interesting, right? So another thing that we could work on, maybe something you can volunteer in your state. I don't know, right? Because they seem to really hate if you want to help out. I don't get that. But those are 2 ways that you can reach out and find out more about Gregg and Phillips' mission and the things he's doing. And like he said, he had literally just got back from this amazing revival in Nicaragua. And yet he's now in California, and he is just so busy. And to have that much time, it was just an unbelievable blessing. So I wanted to also show you this because I had mentioned something. And let me get to this if I can. Oops, I thought I had that up. Give me 1 second. Hold on. I thought I had that up. So I wanted to show you the thing that happened to me at Columbia. I was talking about that earlier. There it is. Where I could not believe what's going on right now with this movie Sound of Freedom, which I do have a painting kind of dedicated to this. I know a lot of people don't know a lot about me, but I do have 3 children from this life that we adopted. So that movie is very real. In fact, after we watched it, my daughter said, boy, that's a G-rated version of that movie. And, we discussed that. I'm like, if you really saw the rated R version of that movie, nobody would watch. Everybody would be so mortified they'd leave. And you kind of have to baby step your way into this because a lot of people don't even know this exists. And it's been going on for a very long time. I mean, child and human trafficking is one of the biggest businesses in the world, about ready to take over these drug trafficking. And it's like $150 billion a year industry. So, but people are now, I mean, it's like, how can you even fight this? How do you even, that story with Columbia. So let me show you this out of the string. This was the pamphlet or the brochure, or whatever you want to call it, for the International Human Rights Festival. This was just the art portion, everybody, at Columbia University. All 4 of these paintings on this pamphlet are mine. All 4. That's what I mean when I said I headlined this for a month in 2019. And I just cannot believe that, people are even arguing that this even exists when just not even a few years ago, I'm headlining it in New York City. And yet now you want to say it's a conspiracy theory. I'm like, this is just the most craziest thing that you guys ever heard. And it's like, right, we know Colombia. I can tell you right now, Colombia is so woke, it's scary. I mean, one end I'm literally headlining, on the other end I'm being chased down. It was unbelievable experience at Colombia. Um, but yes, and you can see, I can show you guys again, but the top one, let me add it to the stream. That top one here, I've shared on all these on True Social. The top one right here is the one I call rape culture. And that one is the one that's dedicated to the child trafficking. This is very much a very real thing that I've seen. Like I said, I've adopted 3 children from that life. Something they're going to, carry with them for the rest of their life, even though I got them littler and we were able to rescue them. And luckily, that's, was a good story in the long run, but they still have issues, even though they've had help and good parents. But you just never lose something like that, I promise. But to sit there and call child trafficking a conspiracy theory when in a breath away you were just headlining it, it's absolutely disgusting. But that's what they're doing. And so it just really breaks my heart on that. So there was something else I wanted to show you guys that I was on that up here. Give me 1 second. I have one I said that I had dedicated to Martin Luther King. And I need to really add this to my website, which I have not done. But I agree with you. And I agree with what Martin Luther King Jr. said. I love that. In fact, that's one of the reasons I did this painting, because he really wanted a world where his kids would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by their character. I say this all the time with my school. I don't care what background you come from. I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, Native American. I just don't care. I don't care if you're rich or poor. All of our youth are possible. In fact, my graduation speech, I had put that in there. I graduated as valedictorian, and they wouldn't let me speak because my speech said all youth are possible. When I went to challenge that, I literally went down and said, so Native Americans aren't possible? Yeah. Black kids aren't possible? Yeah, well, yeah, they are. Well, Asians aren't American? Yeah, they're possible. Until I got down to about white kids. I said, so white kids aren't possible? Well, you just can't say that. You just can't say all youth are possible. I said, well, then I'm not reading it. And I still graduated as valedictorian. I still graduated from Columbia. And basically, I didn't have to share a stage with Hillary Clinton, as it was our keynote speaker. And now is working for Columbia University. So God just saved me on that. But I refuse, because I do believe, no matter what, that all youth are possible. So I wanted to show you this painting I did, as I promised. This is the one I did when I was at Columbia. Let me add this to it. And they loved this. They absolutely loved this painting. This painting is called Only Love Can Conquer Hate. I mean, this is, right? Let me kind of reach in here and make it bigger. As you can see, just on the crown here, too, I have quotes of Martin Luther King Jr. I have Stand United, One Race, the human race, that we're all one race. I mean, and they would love this. In fact, my Dean of Diversity, my DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Dean, wanted this painting. And yet, what are we doing about it? When do we actually realize that everybody is the same? We're all God's children, right? We're all human. And that was it was such an experience. I mean, I was grateful to go to Columbia, but God really showed me a very interesting path. And when I asked last Easter to get to know him better, he kind of did a flashback of my life. Like, I gave you these kids because you went through that personally yourself. And I knew you'd be a great steward of them. I put you in those universities so that you could actually see what the heck's going on with our youth. Because my son and my children are, medically fragile, so they had IEPs. And my son is legally blind, so I'd see that it wasn't working on the outside. Then I ended up going to school because I was a chef, first off, for a lot of years. But I ended up going to school because it was intense and I needed a break. So I just would do art classes and end up taking more, and I love my history classes, right? And I ended up getting a scholarship and moving on. But the universities I got to go to, like the University of Arizona and Columbia University, especially Teachers College, boy, did I get to see exactly what's going on with our youth and what was being taught. And it was mortifying. And then to work in a public school system was like, for 1 year is all I could do. And I was mortified. These kids couldn't read. They can't do math. They had no ideas that they could move further. Didn't know there was grants that existed for college, for trade school. They didn't know that they could build their own businesses. They have no idea. They just are left out there. They're just taking tests to pass tests and not even really learning anymore. I saw this with my own children. I saw this, being pulled out of foundational classes for their social emotional classes and their CRT, moments. And I was like, this is unbelievable. And watching the students literally cry because they were unprepared to move further and ask, please, Miss H, nobody has believed in us like you. Nobody even talks like you. You need to open up your own school. And I was inspired to do so. But it just breaks my heart when you sit there and see them even promoting the same thing and then turn around and sit there and say, no, that's not right. That doesn't exist. And it just kind of lets you know exactly what they're thinking, right? And it's a shame. Our youth are very much under attack. And I hope that we can do all that we can to do that. In fact, speaking of that, I want to show you something else. Let me pull that up so everybody can see that as well, because we have something really amazing going on. You need to get on True Social, everybody. I would really appreciate that if you are. Help us share this out. Let me add this to our stream. But, our goal is to try to help every student out there and their families, whether they can afford to come or not, because we're a nationwide online private school. And trust me, there's many reasons I did that. Or I should say this is all God, because he would be like, oh yeah, try that. And then how'd that work out for you? Right. But he wanted me not only to be concerned about my kids, the kids in my own community, but the kids nationwide. He also wanted me to open it online so I could avoid things like government mandates, government funding, government, all this kind of stuff that controls our schools. I've done podcasts before on all the title programs. I literally read Title I, Title II, and read them from 1 through 9, with Title IX now being the worst of the bunch. That is your DEI, which started out as sexual discrimination and has been so manipulated, so mandated. And Biden has doubled down on this whole agenda to the point where now it completely affects the curriculum, and completely even parental rights is affecting what you have. And this is what's funding our schools. Our state taxes no longer, since the 70s, have not funded our schools. They kind of go up to the Department of Education and get funneled back out like a drug dealer, since the No Child Left Behind, to make sure that all schools have basically the same kind of platforms per se nationwide. But we are talking 80% of our schools are funded through the federal government. At least that. And when they're pulling these strings like these title programs, how in the world is it ever going to change? And that's what's scary. And so I was very much guided to build this a certain way to protect not only me, but to my students and my teachers. And I thank Father all the time as we're rolling into year 3, coming up, here this fall. But I really would love it if you guys even just share this if you're on True Social, because there's a lot of students that need an alternative way of learning, or want to get the heck out of public schools. So let me add this to the stream. We're running an auction, everyone. And what we're going to do, I saw these go on in Truth Social. I was absolutely just loving this. Let me add me here so you guys can, there we go. I'm on the love. I love this idea. I saw this, and this was really something I thought, oh, amazing. So we're selling artwork. I thought about doing one-on-one cooking class. Nurse Patrick's going to do a one-on-one health class, and kind of and it can be tailored to hey, I really want to talk about this disease, or hey, can you talk about that? Giving you time with a nurse. I'm going to give you a cooking class. Also artwork coming on here. Other people and my board members are going to be talking about different things they're going to be doing. We're going to be doing other artists as well. We're also going to be doing great prizes, and there's just going to be an auction. So it could be as simple as the auction goes, $5. It could be even more than that, but every single dime we're making is going to go to support and give a student a scholarship. So again, this is on True Social. So if you're on True Social, please find this, share that. That would really help us out. I would be so grateful for just that help. And then if you're interested in something, please come visit the auction. It starts August 1st. It'll be 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. and we're going to do one every day for, I don't know, a week or so and see what we can get. Again, but this is all to sponsor our youth from around the nation. And like I said, I would really appreciate it. I mean, even if you can't support it, just sharing that would be a true gift, because there might be some people out there that actually can. And I'm real excited. Real excited because I love to be able to sit there and say, I have like 10 scholarships to give away, for the full year, even though we're not even that expensive. Most private schools are like $13,000 a year, and I try to keep it under that at like $4,000 a year. And it'd be really great to be able to sponsor these students. And I have to take somewhat of a pay. I don't know, I have to do something. I've been doing this, volunteering my time, to teach for the past few years, but I have to charge or pay myself something. It could be as simple as like $100. I mean, it's not a big deal. That's fine. We have that. But I'd like to volunteer my time because I'm one of those people that's like, every time we make money or get money for my school, I'm like, I want to give it back to the student right away and help another student. Ever since I got my children, it completely changed my life. And knowing that not every education works the same, and I get that. I definitely say for the littler ones, homeschooling's the way because it's so hard to put them in front of a computer, and we're working backwards. We're going from high school down just because, again, it's so hard to have little ones in front of a computer. But hopefully one day we're rocking full K through 12. And I'm definitely here to listen if you are a parent that wants that. We are ready and have the curriculum for it. But I just know that it's really hard, especially in this day and age where two parents have to work and to pay the bills. And unfortunately, what's the school end up being? It ended up being like a babysitter for them. And as sad as that might be, that's kind of a reality. But these kids are spending 8 to 10 hours at these schools. And no wonder they think that, the government thinks that they are their children, and they're not. And know that you have a right as parents under FERPA, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, until they get wise to that and start taking that away. But know that that's your right to know what the heck is going on in your school, because they should be able to share lesson plans with you and curriculum with you as your right as a parent. And so at least find that out of what's going on in your local schools. Whether they can take that out, unfortunately, they're very good at changing the names. When I was at the National Education Conference in Ohio, they were changing, Common Core got changed to standards. They call them standards now. CRT's name is getting changed from critical race theory to critical thought and inquiry, or, they're very, very clever about just changing the names. So they can literally tell you, no, we don't have that here. But they do. Social emotional learning, I guarantee you, was mandated in every single lesson plan I had to write for the public school. So it's just really something that might not be going away. Can it go away? Yes, but it's going to be a while of us fighting to do so. And it's going to take a lot of parents to do just that. And a government that's willing to stand up and look into that and change that as well. So, and I'm looking here, right, at the chats. See, because usually when I'm live, thank you so much. And it is absolutely just unbelievable what they're doing. I mean, to the point that our kids, when I say they're under attack, we see that now. Even abortions in some states, you can even have that after the baby is born for a month. I mean, unbelievable evil. And then my neighbor, I always talk about this too. My neighbor had a 5-year-old grandbaby that made a comment that, didn't feel like that she wanted, I think, a fireman or something that day. And since she said something man, they sent her home with Queer Theory, which is a book that should never be seen by a 5-year-old. It's completely pornographic, and it's one-on-one how two men have sex step by step as a homework assignment. And then wanted to talk to them about changing her and giving her medications and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not even for the ADHD medication, everyone. So I'm like, this is unbelievable. Our children don't even develop their frontal cortex fully until they're about 26. So how can, and it's not a child problem, it's a parent problem. And this is where it just is getting out of control. I see this too with the National Libraries Association saying we're banning books, and they're saying no, and they're going to put them right back in. Or no, we can't take them out. And we're not banning books. We're just banning pornography for our children. You go write what you want to write. I'm not here to stop you. In fact, I don't even have a problem with you're adult and you want to go do you and you make up your mind to go do you, go do you. But our kids need to learn foundations. School should not be a place where they're learning to change themselves like that and hurt and harm themselves. It should be a place where they're learning their foundations of reading, writing, and arithmetic and history, if I have my way, right? Because that's very important to learn that as well before we lose it and we don't remember it. They say that even 40% of our youth don't even believe that the Holocaust was real. I literally taught high school students that didn't think they had equal laws. We didn't have equal laws, that we're still living in some kind of segregated situation when mentality is totally different. I go, what in the world do you think those 3 amendments were for? Or what do you think the people in the civil rights movements were walking for? Right? I mean, the laws might be equal, but mentality, again, is different. Right? But they didn't even think that they had equal laws. But I was like, it's just unbelievable what they're not learning. And I had a guest on here, a dissident teacher, if you want to look that up. She was amazing, talking about, this kind of stuff. And I witnessed myself with my own kids as they are just now on computers. And again, with a neighbor, her baby is now on a computer in first grade all the time. The teacher just walks behind. And this is something too. My kids were just taking tests, passing tests, and she calls it credit recovery. So if you continue taking the test over and over again until you get a certain passing score, they can say you got that skill and move you on instead of actually teaching in the classrooms. And I've heard parents say that they would love to see cameras in the classrooms. Well, guess what? That's another great reason to check out Hamilton Liberty Academy, because the parents can watch. We're live all the time. And so I'm a wonderful guest that I had on here too, an artist, redesigned her whole entire website. She did a beautiful job. She spent hours with me asking questions so that you guys could get the information about our school. So you can go to HamiltonLibertyAcademy.com. If you have anybody who's interested, or anybody who's interested, and we are working really hard on getting scholarships. So we might be the avenue for you. And so speaking of that, I want to show you one of the commercials our students make, and they are our other sponsor for today, is Hamilton Liberty Academy. So here you go. That in one sitting like a speed artist, and I was just floored with that. And that was in our journalism class, and I was just reading the chats while I was playing that commercial. And yes, I think economics and civics are so important. In fact, our 11th grade math, my assistant with math, she is amazing, and she had an economics class that literally taught these kids how to build business plans on food trucks, taught them how to do the menus, the logos, the cost, the P&L statement. Excuse me 1 second, sorry. I mean, everything down to the cost and everything. It was unbelievable. And then she had them pitching at Shark Week for presentations for funding. It blew my mind. But you cannot graduate our school without taking what we call your senior year adulting 101, which is household budget, household maintenance, car maintenance. It's also your FAFSAs, your SATs and stuff prep, how to start a business, how to find trades, because I'm big on trade schools. My nephew's a welder, makes $150 an hour, in certain times. It's like unbelievable. And where to find these scholarships, how to do a personal statement, how to, also we have an aspect of community service. So that, this was really big. And one of the reasons I even got noticed from Harvard and Columbia is because I started on the side. I started something in my library called We Read. And we also worked in the community gardens and built toys out of recycled materials, which was unbelievable. I had up to like 33 students, that they weren't my school students. And this was my undergrad years, but they're friends of my kids and so forth, and kids from the high schools and stuff. And they served over 200 hours in 1 year of community service. But the letters of recommendation that they got and the grants they got from writing about those experiences with the letters of recommendation, two of the oldest ones that would come to this group both got full rides to a university due to their time and what they gave back, and a lot more than that, of course, their grades and stuff like that, but their stories, it was just amazing. But that's usually what grant givers like to give these big companies, because they like, what are you doing in your community? And these kids so were. And it was amazing because we'd go to the library and we'd read to the little kids. Now, I tried that in my local area here and got shot down from both areas. They didn't want anything to do with a literacy or a reading program. And that's, I don't even know why, because if you looked at my CV and and it wasn't because I was conservative or I'm leaning towards that. It was just, I guess my husband says I have a certain smell to me, maybe, or a certain look now. I don't know. But if you read my CV and think it's from Columbia University, maybe you think it'd be okay. But the point was, it's not, the books. The point is that they need to read. I mean, that's one of my biggest things too is, sorry, everybody, that's my baby in the background if you hear her. But she's saying hello to my husband who just got home. But it's so important that we have literacy, even in Cuba, right? I mean, everybody, the literacy rate is like null and void. Then they all feel that the number one important thing is to be able to read. I'd hate to live in a world where I have to literally believe what somebody else dictates to me and I couldn't research myself. And critical thinking and research is vital to education and your future. So with that all being said, it has been a wonderful broadcast and interview. I am so grateful again for Gregg Phillips coming. So let me tell you who is coming next Friday, because I have another big hitter, and I just want to get her up here so everyone can see her picture. Okay, here we go. I want to make sure I open that so I can share it. I saw her on the news recently, and I cannot believe I got her on so fast. But the Lord has really been inspiring me to do something about this trans movement and the health risks. Because, I mean, whether you're a parent that's for this or not, do you even know the surgeries and what these blockers do, and how this will destroy your lives, this person's life forever? And really researching into this, even after these surgeries, how it changes your life and what you have to do to continue to do that. I mean, the harm it does. And then this reversal surgeries are even worse. So I have this wonderful guest. And like I said, I was able to see, I saw her on the news, and she's written a book. And I reached out and I was like, oh, would you please come and talk to us about this? And I was just so excited because they said yes. And she will be here. Her name is, let me put this, Dr. Grossman. And I don't know if everybody has seen her on the news, but she's written a book called Lost in Transnation. And she is a doctor that is going to talk to us about these surgeries and show us these in-depth procedures and how horrifying they are. And I mean, I could tell you about them, but I'd rather have a doctor come and tell you about them. And afterwards, we'll be so lucky to have Nurse Patrick with us, my husband, who's a great nurse, to kind of go over that and maybe answer any questions that you might have, because this will also be a pre-taped video. She's very, very, very busy, and she's given me an hour of her time right before I go live, because she celebrates the Sabbath. So I'll be interviewing her right before I go live that night. But it's always great to have a nurse that's there too, to answer any questions or to kind of hone certain things in and talk to you about the real jeopardies of these surgeries and these mutilations of what we're doing to our kids. So I'm hoping that you guys kind of all, hello, I'll tell you said hello. I hope you guys all join us for that episode as well. Dr. Grossman is a phenomenal doctor, and I'm just, it's not that I'm excited to show you these, but I am, because I think you need to know the awareness of the horrors of this situation on every aspect and what our youth are facing, because it's not just a dress up. A lot of them just think, hey, I can dress up like a girl or dress up like a boy and take a few pills and I'm good. And that's not right. And if the parents think that too, that's not right. And if you've seen anybody or heard anybody's story about the transitioning back, it's even more horrifying. right? And these are very, very dangerous surgeries. And again, if this is something you want to do as an adult, you should have the right to grow up, research it, critically think about it. And if it's still for you, you go do you. But you need to leave the children alone. There's no way that a 5-year-old can make that decision. Again, like I'll say, that's a parent problem. And again, so I'm very excited to have her on, and that will be next Friday at 7 p.m. Then don't forget, this Sunday, I'll be doing more. We're going to be talking about herbal remedies and supplements again. I love that Nurse Patrick comes and talks about his favorite saying is, let thy food be thy medicine. He just graduated with his naturopathy in pharmacology. And on his hat, he wanted me to put, let thy food be thy medicine. It is very, very important to him. Because if you don't know, and I know I've told the story before, but it's your first time coming, even a few years ago, I was in a wheelchair. I had jaundice all over my body. When I left Columbia, I was so sick. I don't know what got all over me. I don't know if it's the effects of getting COVID. I have no idea. But I was dying. And every test was saying I was in perfect health, yet I was completely dying. And the doctors were like, just take 10 pills and don't walk, don't exercise, don't go in the sun. Just basically sit there and die. And as I got sicker and sicker, that was not working for me or my husband. We made the kind of crazy list and God moved us to where I am now. And I have local beef and meat people a mile away on one end, and I have local greenhouse organic farms on the other. And when I started, he wanted to first detox me. Let's just get your body cleaned out, eating all organic food as possible. In a matter of a couple of weeks, the jaundice was gone. I was starting to feel my legs again. And my body, I'm not your doctor, everyone, but my body cannot take those poisons anymore. And just refused. And now I'm walking and moving. I'm able to exercise. I've lost, like 25 something pounds. Is it coming off slow? But no, I wasn't even able to walk. So here I am, thanking God and my beautiful husband for putting me on this. So we're really big about, letting God's food be your medicine and healing. And then we started gardening. My first attempt, everyone, was horrible if you've watched those shows, but I'm able to figure it out and bring it to you and teach you about some things that I learned when I was younger too, like canning and storing and preserving, and how to grow your beautiful gardens and all kinds of different things. So I look forward to that on Sunday as well, as we continue with that, talking about beautiful herbal remedies, what nature provides for us. And if you have any questions for Nurse Patrick, he will be there to say, and that's what he loves to do, is like, my doctor gave me all these things, but I have diabetes, and I've got those questions before for him, and he'll be live, and we will be able to have that right in the chat, and he'll be able to answer those for you immediately. So I always close my show with a song, and I kind of flipped around about what I wanted to show today, but I really wanted to leave. Oh, there's one more thing I want to show you. Sorry, everyone. I saw this. I got to give a huge shout out to a littermate. Let me find this because it just made my day. And let me find the picture. It was just something they shared, and I thought it was great. Somebody told me a story that if you want the best night's sleep and you're worried about that you can't sleep, the best thing to do is to turn Revelations from the Bible, Revelations, and put it on audio. So it's like on speaker out loud, because the devil hates hearing Revelations because he knows his days are numbered. So I thought that was a really great advice. So if you can't sleep at night, play Revelations on audio out loud, and I hear that you have the greatest night's sleep. I've done it, and I'm telling you, it works really well. It's amazing. But I saw this meme shared today, and it really kind of reminded me of that same thing. And so I'm going to share it with you because it made me crack up. And I wanted to make sure that everybody got to see this too. And I have to give some kudos to it. It's White Wings 1776 from the Glitter Box. Shared this today, and I loved it. It says, be the kind of woman that when your feet hit the floor each morning, the devil says, oh crap, she's up. And I was like, oh, I love that. That just made my day. So thank you so much for sharing that on True Social, because again, I love that. Be the woman or the man that when you wake up, the devil says, oh crap, they're up. And I wanted to leave on a very special note today because, again, the faith that Gregg Phillips has is just unbelievable. And I try every day. I do pray before each podcast. Well, I pray all the time, but I pray before my podcast. I love my relationship. It's so easy to talk to our Father and thank our Savior. And I think that that's where we really need to start, because what a common denominator. So many people of us are coming, to the light of Christ. And what a great way to share that bond. And I hope that you guys enjoy this song. Thank you so much for coming today. Again, if you could please do me a favor, hit that like button, share, give us a follow. That means the world to us, because that means we're able to share this with more people. And I don't know if you've ever seen an interview with Gregg Phillips like that. I have never. So I was thrilled to death to hear his actual story, and not just, a few minutes of this, that, or the other, which is great. But I really got to know him, and I hope that you got to know him a lot more too. Please pray for them as you see that they're under attack and a lot of lawsuits coming up. And pray for each other, everyone. And I'm going to load this video up here for us. We're hoping that YouTube lets us play this without any problem. So we'll say a little prayer about that. And I will see you guys on Sunday, 12 o'clock. Have a great weekend and enjoy it. Enjoy each other. Give your family and your kids especially big hugs and loves. And again, I believe all youth are possible, and I appreciate you guys being here. And I will see you then. Let me get this on full screen for everybody so you can see it. All right. Enjoy and have a great night, everyone.
A crown of thorns placed on his head. He said, "Did you forget me? For feel the loss of Christ the King before his hallelujah, 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 hallelujah." He hung his head and prepared to die, then lifted his face up to the sky, said, "I am coming home now, Father, to you." A reed which held his final sip was gently lifted to his lips. He drank his last and gave his soul to glory. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. The soldier who had used his sword to pierce the body of our Lord said, "Truly this was Jesus Christ, our Savior." He looked with fear upon his sword, then turned to face his Christ and Lord, fell to his knees, crying, "Hallelujah, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah." Took from his head the thorny crown and wrapped him in a linen gown, then laid him down to rest inside the tomb. The holes in his hands his feet inside. Now in our hearts we know he died to save us from ourselves. Oh, hallelujah. 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 3 days went by, again they came to move the stone, to bless the slain with oil and spice anointing. Hallelujah. But as they went to move the stone, they saw that they were not alone. Ah, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.